Ladies and gentlemen in the room and all of us online, a very good afternoon, good morning, whatever time zone it is you're in. Allow me to start with a key question that has been a subject of heated debate on Wall Street as well as Main Street for a long time now. And this is what Dylan was just referring to as well. Is it possible to drive superior shareholder returns by addressing the very challenges humanity is facing today? That climate change, income inequality, and other such challenges are existential is a given. The question is, should businesses be held responsible for doing their bit? And if so, can it be done profitably? Well, let's take a look. Here's somebody who generated 290% return to shareholders in their tenure as CEO for 10 years by creating a sustainability-based business plan. They did not do any of these things because of regulatory or reporting pressure, and they got out of very profitable lines of businesses that were harmful for the environment, and their goal was to double the growth, half the environmental impact, and triple the social impact. Who was this? As many of you may have already guessed, yes, it is Paul Polman, and this is what happened in his tenure as CEO. Was this a one-off? Well, here's another one. This person, this company, has had 21,000% stock appreciation since IPO in 1992. They've been on the Fortune Most Admired Company list for 19 consecutive years, and they did this based on an employee and society-focused business plan. They were the first company in the United States and probably in the world to provide full health care benefits even to part-time workers. Even to part-time workers, and they were a company that spent more on employee benefits than on the raw material needed to produce their product. And that's the growth right there in front of you. Again, many of you might have guessed this. This is Starbucks and the story of Howard Schultz. He basically was famously said when he became CEO of Starbucks back then, I wanted to create a company my father never had the chance to work for. A company where everybody is treated with respect and everybody is included. Here's another one. This family-owned conglomerate has been in business for 153 years. By the way, the average lifespan of a company today is less than 18 years. Their mission is to bring enhancement to the quality of life. 66% of this business is owned by philanthropic trusts. And the motto, of this company is, we make money so we can give it away. Some of you in the audience definitely know who that is. And one of their directors is here with us today. And this is none other than Tata Group. Here's what the founder said back then. In a free enterprise, the community is just not another stakeholder in business, but is in fact the very purpose of its existence. 153 years of successful growth focusing on societal and environmental benefit. Ladies and gentlemen, in case we needed any more growth, any more proof, there are lots and lots of studies out there that I will not go into detail. This particular one from a few years ago compares companies with very high ratings on ESG practices versus companies with the lowest ratings on ESG practices. One outperforms the S&P, the other one underperforms the S&P significantly. Similarly, if you look at, is focusing on the existential challenges of today a good thing? Well, according to the World Economic Forum, it is $10.1 trillion a year in business opportunities and could create 395 million jobs by 2030. The fact of the matter is, doing well by doing good is not only possible, it is also practical. But it will require a different kind of leadership. It will require a different kind of management, and we call that steward leadership. So let me spend the next few minutes talking a little bit about what our research has told us, that if you want to generate these kinds of returns by doing the right thing, how do you need to rethink leadership and governance? What we need is not just leadership. What we need is not just stewardship. We need steward leadership. What do we mean by that? Well, the definition or our understanding of both the word leadership and stewardship has evolved over the years. Traditionally, we've thought about leaders. A leader is somebody with the highest title and the most authority. That's how we've thought about leadership. But fortunately, as we have progressed as humanity, so has our understanding of leadership. Today, we don't think about a leader as the one with the highest title. It's not what the title is, it's not the amount of authority, it's what you do with it. So our understanding of leadership today is leadership is the genuine desire and persistence to create a better future. It's not a title. It's not a position. It's not telling people what to do. It is that genuine desire. It's the burning desire to create a better future. I am in this world today. I'm going to make it a little better than when I found it. That's how we understand leadership today. Similarly, stewardship, the word steward, if you look it up in the dictionary, it conjures up images of a steward on an airplane or a ship, somebody who serves, somebody who takes care, somebody who preserves value. But our modern understanding of stewardship goes a little bit more than that, and that is stewardship is creating value by integrating the needs of multiple stakeholders, society, future generations, and the environment. That's what the modern definition of stewardship tells us. Steward leadership combines these two elements, and here's what we propose. Borrowing from leadership, we say that steward leadership still is the genuine desire and persistence to create a better future, but not just a better future only for shareholders or for myself. Because we imbibe stewardship, it is a collective better future for multiple stakeholders, for the environment, for society at large, for employees, for everybody. So that is what we propose, ladies and gentlemen, that needs to happen. Companies need to be led and governed with the lens of steward leadership, which is the genuine desire and persistence to create a collective better future. Now, all said and done, beautiful definitions, beautiful words. How do I put this into practice? So a few words on that. We've studied the greatest of great steward leaders, Tata's, Ayala's, so many examples. How did they do it? And the answer is actually very simple. There are 3 very simple steps to practicing steward leadership, but they are simple and not simplistic. So I just want you to keep that in mind. They are simple, but not simplistic. The first step is based on what we observed when we looked at the best of the best steward leaders. They believe in 4 core values. And the first step, if you want to lead your organization with steward leadership, is to imbibe these 4 values, embed these 4 values within the DNA and culture of the organization. What were these 4 common values we found amongst the best of the best steward leaders? Here they are. Sorry. The first one is interdependence. Interdependence says that I strongly believe that my success depends on yours and yours depends on mine. I cannot succeed in isolation in today's highly interconnected world. If you don't believe in interdependence, you don't believe in stewardship, you don't believe in steward leadership. That is the bedrock. The second is long-term view, that this is going to take a bit of time. I'm going to build for today and tomorrow, for today's generation and tomorrow's generation. If I have to give up some short-term immediate gains for longevity of success, collective success, I'm willing to do that. Ownership mentality says I choose steward leadership. I don't want to make money just because of making money. I want to make money the steward leadership way. I take ownership of that. And finally, steward leaders understand how difficult it is to drive superior shareholder returns with a view of creating a collective better future. It's going to need 2 things. It's going to need innovation, constant innovation, and it's going to need tenacity. So that's the last one, creative resilience, creativity and innovation, and resilience, which is the tenacity. I will not give up. That's what the steward leader says. So the first step being to incorporate these 4 values within corporate values. Again, there is a big but. A lot of organizations print beautiful posters of values with beautiful words such as these, but they remain just that, posters on the wall. How do I know that? Because when I work with senior leadership teams around the world within the Fortune 500 world, the CEO and the top team is with us for a couple of days, I asked them a basic question. I said, be honest. If you had 100 units of management time that you typically spend in a year, how much do you spend on framing and enforcing rules and policies versus how much do you spend on making sure your employees actually live the stated values? And wherever I go, I've been asking this question now for 15 years of leadership teams, some big marquee name companies included, and the general answer is 80-20. 80% of the time goes in framing and enforcing rules and policies. 20%, if any, goes towards making sure the values are lived. This is the leaders themselves admitting, oh my God, that's a mirror. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in the breakneck speed world that we live in today, a culture like this is very dangerous because it creates a red ocean of bureaucracy. If all that people are led by is rules, 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 policies, 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 rules get outdated before the ink dries on them these days, this is dangerous. And you know what this does? It creates terrible behavior. Does anybody know what this picture is? This is United Airlines a few years ago beating up this passenger called Dr. Dow because he refused to give up his seat on an overbooked flight. And they beat him up and dragged him out. The first words that came out of the CEO's mouth when this video went viral were these: my employees did nothing wrong. They acted according to stated company rules and stated industry policy. That if nobody gives up a seat, you pick one person at random and you pull them out. I want to ask the CEO if instead of working according to stated company policy, they had acted according to stated company values, would they have worked harder to find a different solution? Of course, the answer is yes. So be careful how much of your time is going towards framing rules versus policies. In today's day of breakneck speed, we need to reverse that. We need to have spirit of the law. We need to have values trump rules because rules come from values in the first place. The days of running companies with rigid SOPs and only rules are over. Today, we need a values-based revolution. So these better not be just posters on the wall. These values have to be embedded in the way that I'm talking about. That's the first step of steward leadership. Once you've actually embedded these values and articulated these values, the next step is to articulate a stewardship purpose for the company. Now, every company has a purpose, whether you know it or not. Even the mafia has a purpose, except not a very good one. So when people say we are transforming into a purpose-driven organization, it brings a smile on my face. What do you mean you never had a purpose on this while? Maybe you had a purpose. It was to maximize profits. What you're trying to say is that we are going to now move towards a stewardship purpose, which is different from ordinary purpose because it aspires to create that collective better future that I was talking about. And as Dylan was mentioning, create both economic and social value. Now, the purpose and the values together become the steward leadership compass of the organization. You can use your own words, but the third step is incredibly important, which is everything now that the company does, from strategy to execution to shaping the culture to day-to-day decisions, pricing, you name it, must be put through the lens of the steward leadership compass. This becomes the true north for everyday operations. So step 3 is really, really important. Dylan spoke a little bit about the role of the board, and let me reiterate what he has already said much more eloquently than I ever will. What is the role of the board in steward leadership? Basically ensuring step 3. Paul Polman was successful with the 290% returns because his board was strongly behind him that we want to lead this company the steward leadership way. The board's role is absolutely essential. How will the board know that actually, how are we doing on our steward leadership journey? Well, again, there's a lot of ways to measure things these days, and in some cases, we are measuring the heck out of things. So in terms of steward leadership, which, again, as Dylan said, is more art than science, we have a measure, but it's more of an artistic measure than a 100% mathematical measure. Again, with a lot of research, we have created an instrument called the Steward Leadership Quotient, which measures how a company is doing across the 5 dimensions of steward leadership. Is the talk about stewardship purpose and the 4 stewardship values just talk? Or are we actually walking the talk? The first people to find out if it's only talk or if it's actually something substantive is going to be your own rank and file employees. So this very quick instrument actually measures employee perceptions on these 5 dimensions, and it can be used as a mirror, as a reflective set of data for management teams and boards to see what are we doing well and what can we do better. I just have a caveat. This is not, and what you do, this is just a quick snapshot, but there's a pretty detailed report you get out of this as to on each values and each dimension of the value. Still, it's a very short instrument of only 25 items. Caveat is this is not yet another rating and ranking exercise to name and shame companies. This is internal data for the company to reflect on their own leadership, on their own steward leadership. So that's in essence what steward leadership is, and that is what we are learning by studying the best of the best as to how are they doing it, how are they driving superior returns, with what kind of leadership, with what kind of governance. At the end of the day, to summarize it all, ladies and gentlemen, steward leadership boils down to 2 things. As I've said, stewardship values and stewardship purpose. Put that together, practice it every day, and that's steward leadership. So it is those 4 values and a stewardship purpose which aims to create a collective, better future. But at the end of the day, steward leadership is a personal choice. Before you lead the organization, you have to decide whether you personally want to be a steward leader. What are your stewardship values? Do you believe in them? Do you believe in interdependence or an idea similar to that? What is your personal stewardship purpose? What do you want your children to remember you as? As a good father, as a good mother who made good, very good food and loved them all a lot? Or somebody who left something better behind, much bigger than being a good father or good mother? Because being a good father and good mother is your basic duty. What else is your life going to be worth? What is going to be your stewardship purpose? And are you going to live every day of your life based on your stewardship purpose and your stewardship values, or will you apply them only when convenient? So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to leave you with one final question. Will you choose steward leadership? Thank you very much. And with that, I know I have Richard here with us. Richard, welcome. The last time I told you about what I was going to speak about, you had a ton of questions, but we stopped short. So what's on your mind? What did I make confusing? What do you agree or disagree with, Richard? Richard, we have an audio issue. We can't hear you.
I have committed the cardinal sin.
Okay, your audio is breaking
Cardinal
up.
sin of you need to unmute yourself. Good morning to you from Brussels. Look, the really simple question to start here, right? A really easy one, which goes back to that last point you said, choosing steward leadership only when convenient. Are these steward leaderships born, created, or come to Damascus moment when you suddenly realize you've screwed up?
Yeah, that's the point I was trying to make. You know, it's all very easy to say, I am a steward leader, we are a purpose-driven organization, and I live by my values. Of course, when push comes to shove, when it's really in the midst of a serious crisis or a big opportunity that, you know, we can profit from and nobody will find out, that is when the rubber hits the road.
But don't you have to go further back? You talk about the board. Is not the reality that the board's selection of the leader is crucial, and too often boards fail in this basic duty?
You couldn't be more right. without the board doing its job. Again, I had the task of sort of distilling what is a lot of material into 15 minutes, but you're absolutely right. The board's role, if the board does not put the right CEO in the right place, in place in the first place, you can forget about steward leadership. And even if you do, again, going back to Paul Polman's example, I mean, the first 2 years, he had a rough time, but the board stood by him. 75% of his management team quit because they thought this company was going to lose value. But he persisted because the board believed in it. Whereas in some other cases, I will not name the companies, the board did not, and those CEOs, even though they started as steward leaders, were fired. And you know who I'm talking about.
Right, well, talk about P&O Ferries, whose CEO, Peter Hebblethwaite, last week, you know the story, you're nodding, went in front of a parliamentary committee in the House of Commons and admitted that they had not consulted on redundancies because they knew the union wouldn't agree. So basically, he admitted the company broke the law because it was more convenient and they'd rather pay the compensation afterwards. Is that steward leadership?
I think you answered your own question, Richard. Of course, it's not. I'm reminded of Andy Fastow, the former CFO of Enron. And he said that you can follow all the rules and still make fraud happen. And that is what I did, and that is why I went to jail. Steward leadership is not about rules. Steward leadership is about upholding the right values even when it is inconvenient. Now, the quintessential steward leader was Nelson Mandela, who even when his wife and daughter left him, even when the majority black population that voted him for the purpose of revenge refused to do so and offered forgiveness and reconciliation instead. Now, that's a steward leader, upholding the values of forgiveness and reconciliation even when inconvenient.
But we all aspire to that, or at least one would hope we do. It's like the definition of integrity, Rajeev, doing the right thing when no one's looking. But how do you know when you're not? How do you know? I mean, you spoke about when you know how to do it, but how do you know when you're not doing steward leadership? If the share price is going up, if sales are going well, if the employees are a bit unhappy, so be it. How do you know when you're failing?
Well, that's back to Dylan's point earlier. It's more art than science, which is why just pure measurements and pure policies don't cut it. Steward leadership is an art. At the end of the day, values, your heart should know when it is right and when it is not.
So what do you say to the person who says, look, we all accept that if you only concentrate on the shareholder, you're screwed. If you only concentrate on integrity and values, you're not going to get anywhere. But what do you say to the person who says, if I concentrate on, never mind steward leadership, but stakeholder leadership, all the people who have an interest in the enterprise, I will get to the end result. What's the difference between stakeholder leadership and steward leadership?
Very similar, very similar. There are many different words being used to describe the same thing. So we talk a lot about stewardship here, and we say that, stewardship is creating value by taking care of multiple stakeholders, future generations, and the environment. So sustainability, ESG, responsible investing all become different forms of stewardship. Call it what you want, it's the same thing. What we say is that steward leadership goes a step further, not just in preserving value, but in using innovation to create value for larger than just shareholders. So similar idea.
You've got the CEO who doesn't care. He's got his stock options. She's got their stock options. They really think to themselves, I'm out of here in 5 to 6 years, 3 years being the average. I don't care. I'm not going to pollute rivers knowingly and willingly. I'm not going to get kids up the chimney aged 5. But my goal is to get the share price up, because if I do, then my bonus and my options will vest. What do you say? That person's beyond the pale. So what happens then?
I say, make your choice. Do whatever you want to do. What I cannot tell you what to do, but for heaven's sake, you cannot be called a leader, and you certainly cannot be called a steward leader if that's all you're thinking about, you and your stock options. I say, think very hard that you've been given this opportunity, Mr. CEO, of leading a really large corporation. You can make a massive impact for humanity. What choice are you going to make, Mr. CEO? That's what I ask him.
Would you say to him, do you sleep well at night? And he says, yes.
Yeah, comes back to values. Comes back to values.
Rajeev, finally, if you had one, to the CEO, to the person watching us now who says, I agree, but how do I internally tap into those values that I believe in, that I was taught as a kid, but I've somehow lost my way? What's the answer, finally?
Sorry, you're saying if he asked me what, again?
If he has or she has the values, but they've lost their way. They know what's right, but they can't gain the courage to do it. How do you help them?
Take baby steps. First of all, decide that I want to find my way again. And if you have decided to do the right thing, the next thing to do is take 2 baby steps with full heart. Guaranteed, if you take the first 2 steps with the right intention, the other 98 will follow. So with that, I believe our time is up. Thank you so much, Richard. Richard, I'm going to ask you to stay on and join this amazing panel, which my friend Vinika is going to now to host. So hang on there, Richard, and thank you very much, everybody.